be part of the dudes.
Hi everybody, welcome to another ramble. It is the 20th of February and it's Friday. And I'm recording this a little bit early because it's going to go up on Sunday because I'm going to be away next week. I'm actually going away next week. So this ramble is just going to be me. Hopefully that doesn't make you too sad because we've had Lewis and Terps on recently, which has been very fun. And we'll have them on again for more dad chat and magical history tour. That'll be great. Once I can actually sort of handcuff them to the radiator and force them to say stuff into a microphone, it'll happen again. Until then, though, you're just going to have to put up with me. So I'll give you a little bit of an update about me going away and stuff like that and the channel for next week. And then we can move on to doing some serious rambling if we haven't already started that already. So next week I go away. I'm going to be away all week, which is not ideal for me. I don't really like to be away that much, but it's one of those things that's come up. It's like a really cool thing to do. It's going to be very fun. It's kind of like top secret. We can't really talk about it. Me and Duncan are basically going to the US for something. But then we can talk about it shortly after we get back. And obviously, we can't wait to tell everybody that we're getting married in the US and that when we can talk about it, and I'm just joking, when we get back, we probably can talk about it, and there might be some video stuff or whatever around it. But certainly we can sort of mention what we've gone there for and stuff like that once like this crazy embargo NDA stuff has lifted or whatever. So we're very excited for that. I'm going to be in Bristol for like a day before that as well, so I can catch up with people that I haven't seen since before Christmas. It's been a while since I last went to Bristol. So that'll be very fun too. I might do some recording while I'm over there. I'm not sure. I'm only there for a day, so we'll have to see. But certainly catching up with people will be great. And then jetting off to the States will also be great as well. And then I will be back the following week. So while I'm away, there is, I think, a Grim Fandango coming out tomorrow night, which is sort of like on schedule. But then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, there won't be any Fallout or Grim Fandango because I'm not in to record them. And I have been recording them sort of like, I haven't been batch recording them. And it's been really fun to do that as well. It's been like super interactive. Like I read comments from people and stuff and, read Reddit and everything. And it's been really great. It feels like I'm actually playing these games with you guys, which is awesome. It's really, really fun. And I've really enjoyed it. So I don't want to batch record too much stuff, especially the solo stuff. Because I feel like you lose some of that interactivity and stuff like that. And it's neat. It's neat seeing sort of like going back to episodes and seeing how I recorded them compared to others, because some days, I'm in a better mood than others and you can sort of tell, and it's just like subtle, but it's just quite funny to do. And it's funny for me to go back and see that and everything. But because I'm not going to be here next week, those won't be turning up on the channel. So there's a couple of days where there will only be a single whammy, which is unfortunate. But there's some other stuff anyway. There's some multiplayer stuff that I put together and that I have had backlogged that I'm going to put out instead. There's an Evening with Sips episode next week, which I recorded earlier this week, and it'll just go out next week because it's ready to go. A new game that I've played with Lewis and Pier and Flax, which we just sort of randomly picked up, played, and happened to record as well, which is great fun. We had a really good time. So some episodes of that coming out next week. And then the usual sort of like TTT, some Don't Starve. There's some more Evolve going up as well. So that's next week. And then the week after, when I'm back, we will get back into the solo stuff for sure. Grim Fandango, Fallout. I'll be sort of chomping at the bit when I get back because I've enjoyed playing them. I continue to enjoy playing them, and I want to see them through. I want to finish them. I want to finish Grim Fandango. The story so far has been excellent, and Fallout too. Holy crap! I was so surprised by Fallout. I can't believe how good it is. I mean, I know it's a classic, and everybody's like, oh, it's Fallout. It's like one of the biggest game franchises, and it's like this classic, all-time classic game or whatever. But sometimes you play like old classic games, especially if you've never played them before, or even sometimes when you have played them before. And if they're from the 90s, like they're not always amazing. Like graphically, they're obviously sometimes kind of hard to look at, and it's hard to remember actually enjoying those games with the graphics being the way they were or whatever. Not saying that graphics is everything, but particularly in the 90s, I don't know if you've noticed, like you see retro games now, or like the sort of fake retro games by indie developers that come out, and they're always platformers, and they always look like NES or SNES games, and they do it on purpose. But because there's been advances in, like, I don't know, coloring techniques or something, everything looks like very crisp and clear and beautiful, and it's like pixel art, and it's amazing. But like, if you genuinely look back to the 90s at games that were being created back then, for some reason, like a lot of them just look like trash, even though it's just the same pixel art and stuff like that. It just like, I don't know, like I guess like pixel art just wasn't like refined back then or something. But some of them are like very hard to play because they're just so fucking ugly. But then others are just like incredible still, like to this day, after all this time. But Fallout, I was a bit worried. I thought, the graphics aren't like amazing. It might be kind of hard to get into. It might be like super brutal and unforgiving. And it is kind of like all those things in a way. But it's been very, very surprising, very fun. And I very, very much enjoyed it. And I continue to enjoy it as well. And it's interesting seeing how Mike Tyson, the dribbling Neanderthal of the wastes, develops as a character as well. He seems to be doing okay so far, so that's good. So yeah, once I get back, I'll be pretty excited to get back into those games. And when I get back, I will probably start a playthrough on City Skylines, which is fantastic, and I've been playing it quite a bit. And I'm looking forward to actually just recording sort of like a longer term city building series, similar to like SimCity and Cities of Tomorrow when we did that. That was good fun. So that'll be when I get back. I mean, I'm still trying to move as well. So over the next couple of weeks, I'll be moving. I've got this trip. So I'm actually kind of busy over the next couple of weeks. But for sure, when I'm back from my trip, I will have a lot of time to get back into solo recording. And I definitely will do all that solo recording, City Skylines and all that good stuff when I get back, for sure. So that's sort of, well, God, that was a bit long-winded. Sorry about that. That is the update for next week for my YouTube channel. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel and you watch my YouTube videos, that's what's happening. And if you're wondering next week, where the hell's the latest Grim Fandango or whatever, it's because I'm not here. I'm probably in a plane. And if I'm not in a plane, I'm probably in some sort of dungeon being tortured because I've been kidnapped or some, all the kind of general stuff that happens when you go on a trip. I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but maybe I just have bad luck. It seems to happen to me like all the time. So there we go. I mean, I wanted to talk about some of the stuff that I started talking about in my update. So I've been playing these old games, right? I've been playing Grim Fandango, which is like a point-and-click adventure game from the 90s. It's a LucasArts games. It's recently been remastered by Double Fine, which is a company that's... Does Tim Schafer own it, or does he just like run the company? I don't even know. Anyway, Tim Schafer is one of the guys that worked on the Monkey Island series, which is, possibly LucasArts' biggest point-and-click adventure series. There was like 4 or 5 Monkey Island games, I think. I think the last one I played was 3. I don't think I played 4, which was the tank controls Grim Fandango-like one. I don't know if it was any good or not. I never played it. 3 was very good, though. The art style and everything in 3 was fantastic. And then 1 and 2 are just fucking classics. Such good games. So I've been playing Grim Fandango. Fallout, of course, as I mentioned earlier, is an older game as well. And you can't help but think, like I grew up in the 90s. I mean, I was a teenager in the 90s. I did a lot of gaming in the 90s. And that's like when gaming sort of matters, right? When you're in your teens, because you remember games from your preteens. Like, I think I got an NES when I was like 7. I think the first time I got an NES, I'd played them before because I had friends that had them. But for me and my family, we had a ColecoVision, which is like, this like weird like phone controller. It was like an old style phone, like a big one. It was like a brick with like 9 buttons on it and this like weird dial thing. We used to have like Donkey Kong Jr. on it and like some other games or whatever. But like mostly my dad played it. I think I got to play it a couple of times, but I was very young and I didn't know what I was doing. So it was like always like supervised, and it was just one of those things that was like in the 80s. So like having like home electronics like that was fairly common, but I think they were like kind of expensive all the same. Like certainly like the home console market hadn't like matured at that point. It was only really when I guess when the Atari came out, but Atari came out at a weird time, and it's sort of like everybody got one, or a lot of people got one. But then I don't know if you remember those stories about Atari, like they're just being like warehouses and warehouses filled with like Atari cartridges because they made so many, and they like really sort of like thought that they were going to sell a lot more than they actually did. And there's just like landfills somewhere just filled with old Atari cartridges, like old games and stuff like that. Atari came out like a lot, well, it was a lot earlier than the NES. I'm not sure how much earlier. But then basically when the NES came out, from my memory, that was when things really took off for like home console market. Like everybody I knew had an NES. And then it only got worse when like the Super Nintendo came out and Sega Genesis and all that. That's like everybody just was going crazy for all that kind of stuff, like back in like the 80s and early 90s or whatever. So like games that like you played in your preteens for like those consoles were oftentimes like, Mario and like DuckTales and stuff like that. And like those were fucking great games. Mega Man, like those were all like super, super great games. But really like defining moments like in gaming for me were when I was in my teens playing PC games like in the 90s. So like the first time I ever played StarCraft, the first StarCraft when it was released, was like amazing. It was just like this huge, like, oh my God, I can't believe this game is so incredible. Same with Warcraft 2 when it came out, and then the expansion for Warcraft 2. And then, of course, like, everybody that played Warcraft 2 at the time and loved it couldn't wait for Warcraft 3 to come out. Warcraft 3 came out, and it was just like this crazy sort of like redefined like the RTS genre or whatever, and it was all nuts, and everybody loved it and everything. And like those moments, like I remember far clearer than I remember sort of like early console games and stuff like that. Like I got a console when we were on a road trip. Like we went on a family road trip, which consisted of driving in a car for like a week to get to my grandparents' house, who lived like on the other side of the country. And then in between that, because it used to be at that time, like in the mid 80s or whatever, the Canadian dollar was stronger than the American dollar. It's like the only time it's ever happened. But basically, it used to be really, really cheap for us to just like dip into the States for like a day or two and go shopping and buy like, Nintendos and clothes and stuff like that, because the exchange rate was just phenomenal on the Canadian and the US dollar. So we went into like, I think it was like North Dakota or something on the way home. And we went to like a store and bought a Nintendo Entertainment System with like the light gun and everything. So this is like halfway through a week-long car trip, okay? We stop at this place, we buy a Nintendo. I'm like 7 years old and I'm shitting my pants like in excitement. I'm so fucking excited about having this Nintendo. And it's sitting in the trunk of the car for like 5 days while we drive home. So, every day we stopped at like a motel or something, or a hotel or wherever, because, you have to stop somewhere to sleep, especially like I had a younger brother. So there's 2 kids in the car. And like that was like I don't know, like, did you guys ever do that? Like, did you ever have family vacations like that, or is it just me? I don't know. Anyway, so we'd stop at places to sleep, like hotels and stuff like that. And every night I'd be like, Dad, come on, hook up the Nintendo. There's a TV in here. We can do it. No, we don't want to take it out of the box and stuff because we don't know how to like set it up and everything. We'll set it up when we get home. So it's like this. It's like 5 days of like torture, because all I wanted to do was play this fucking Nintendo. And then we had to wait until we got home. And the anticipation was so high, and everybody was screaming at each other and yelling because all anyone wanted to do was play Nintendo. And then we got home, hooked it up, and I spent like a week standing right next to my TV with the light gun pressed up against the screen trying to get a high score in Duck Hunt, because that was like the thing to do back then. But yeah, so getting like my first console was a memorable experience, but then most of my super memorable experiences after that with gaming are PC related, and when I was in my like mid-teens, I'd say definitely mid-teens. So StarCraft, Warcraft, when they came out, I played the shit out of those. I remember playing the first Sims when it came out, because at the time when the first Sims came out, there was nothing like it. So it was like this big thing. Everybody like wanted to get it and play it, and everybody was worried that like people would not live normal lives anymore, and they would just like live these virtual lives through the Sims and stuff, which obviously like didn't really happen, because World of Warcraft did that instead when it came out, and like EverQuest and stuff as well. So the Sims came out, I think, before those games did. But I remember getting like the first Age of Empires, which was amazing. I remember playing Ultima Online, which was like the first MMO I'd ever played, and that was amazing. It was like mind-blowing. Duke Nukem 3D. I remember playing that on Kali, which was like a matchmaking service back before there was like really... the internet was around, but it wasn't like it is now. You know, like people didn't use it the same way that they use it now. When the internet first came around, people used to use it just to like find information if they needed it, or make their own web pages with like a Starfield background and like all sorts of like weird fucking marquee scrolling flashing text and stuff. But like nobody really, like, chatting on the internet and stuff started to get big like early on, I guess, but like nobody really used it to like play MMOs and like, you know, have competitive esports and stuff back then. Like none of that stuff existed. There was no streaming, there was no YouTube, there was nothing like that. So you use the internet for like really different things. But like Kali, I remember you had like these dial-up modems. Like I used to have like I can't even remember. I think it was like a 58 K BPS. It was like an external modem, and it would just like screech away in the night. And sometimes like if my parents picked up the phone and it was on the same line, I could hear my mom like through the speaker of the modem, hello mom, I'm trying to play Duke Nukem, please hang up the phone. And like it was a weird time, but I always look back fondly because of course it was like my childhood and it was good fun or whatever. So yeah, so Kali and stuff like that. And so I don't even know really what I'm trying to say. I'm just like on some like massive nostalgic trip about Fallout and Grim Fandango. I'm surprised by both at how much I really like them. And it reminded me that games used to be somewhat different. I mean, they haven't changed like an awful lot, really. I mean, there's new like things that games do to sort of like hook you in or make you spend more money. Like, you know, like microtransactions didn't exist back then, obviously, because they couldn't. Because like there was no e-commerce back then either. I don't think anyone thought that you would ever be able to buy stuff on the internet until like, you know, much later on, like into like the 2000s or whatever. But nowadays, like, you know, like playing Grim Fandango, like I was playing it earlier, and like I just got an achievement for completing a dialogue tree. And it's like, I know that's like a Steam thing, and like the whole achievement system has sort of like played its part in gaming, where, you know, people are like completionists and you might play the game more because there's like things to achieve and stuff like that. Like, you know, you look at World of Warcraft, you look at like Diablo and games like that, and there's hundreds and thousands of achievements of things that you could try to do, you know, if you're bored or whatever. And that's cool and everything, but like, is there a point to giving somebody an achievement just for like doing something in the game that they probably would have had to do anyway? Like exhausting dialogue trees in an adventure game is pretty much something that you have to do. Like it's just part of ruling everything out if you're stuck on a puzzle or whatever. I mean, I don't always do it myself because sometimes like I just can't be bothered or whatever. But more oftentimes than not, if you're stuck somewhere, usually if you talk to somebody or you can talk to somebody and you can keep repeating the same thing over and over and they respond differently, sometimes that works. Exhausting a whole dialogue tree oftentimes works as well. But then like Steam just gives you an achievement for it. And I just think, well, I mean, it's kind of nice, I guess. And it's cool to have like a library of achievements against games or whatever. But like, I don't know, do adventure games actually need achievements? Like the achievement itself is just solving the puzzles and progressing the puzzle. You don't need like a little toaster notification to say, hey, congratulations, Manny, you talked to Mr. Dingus about his fucking donger or whatever. And it's, I don't know. It just seems like a bit of a waste, but at the same time, I guess I understand why they do it. Oh, pardon me. And then funnily enough, in Fallout, there are no achievements because I guess they just didn't bother to do like the Steam achievement integration stuff. which is fine too. But for me, it seems like a bit weird that they do it in Grim Fandango. And then some other games as well where there's achievements. I just think, what's the fucking point of putting an achievement in this game? Like, you know, if it's a game like World of Warcraft where you basically live a second life, and, you know, in your downtime in between raiding or like gearing up or whatever, you want a couple of things to do just to like sort of keep things interesting or whatever, then yeah, that makes perfect sense, you know? And like in World of Warcraft as well, I like the achievement system in World of Warcraft is fantastic, basically. The achievement system on Steam is not so fantastic, basically. And I think the big difference is that in World of Warcraft, there's achievements, there's rewards for attaining some of these achievements. So like you get some of these achievements, like some of them are very hard, you know, some of them are exclusive to like a period of time, for instance, or whatever. I mean, some of them are kind of dumb, you know, like reaching level 10. It's not really an achievement. It's like something you have to do in the game at some point, unless like you just want to be level 1 and spend all your life in Goldshire or whatever, cybering with people, which there should be an achievement for now, come to think of it. But, I mean, some of them are, yeah, just dumb and they just sort of keep the momentum or whatever. But it's like the sound effect and like the little fucking explosion on the screen and stuff. And it just like does that chemical reaction in your brain where you're like, no, I've done something and I feel amazing about it. Like reaching level 10 in a game. But then like there are some other ones that like you definitely can feel like a bit proud of. Like remember when they used to have like Realm First, like if you played World of Warcraft, they used to have like Realm First beat like the dragon boss or whatever. And like, so like you and your guild would like go crazy leveling up as many people as could level. And then you would try to do this boss and beat him for the first time, like out of everybody on your server. And then you'd get an achievement for that. And like, that's a cool achievement to have because there's only like 20 of you on the server that could ever have that achievement sort of thing. And back in the day when like, you know, server transfers weren't so common and they weren't grouping servers together and stuff like that, it's not that it meant anything, but you did actually feel like you did achieve something, however nerdy it was sort of thing. But certainly much better than, you know, just reaching level 10 or exhausting a dialogue tree with, you know, Meche or something like that. You know what I mean? It is different, and it always just like strikes me funny. And like, and then I think about old games where there was just none of that kind of stuff. Like, you know, achievements. The achievement itself was just getting through this hard, sort of brutal, unforgiving game. So similar to Fallout, which, I mean, coming back to Fallout, it is unforgiving. It's quite hard. It doesn't hold your hand or anything, but it's not so bad that it's unplayable. Like I gimped myself at the start by giving my character low intelligence or whatever. I didn't realize that was going to have an effect on the game whatsoever. Certainly not like a huge effect that it has had, where like I don't even get dialogue options now from people. Like people just do not like me because I'm not intelligent. but at the same time, that's awesome. It's awesome that the game caters for that and like completely changes the game. It means that next time I want to play through Fallout with a different character who might be like some fucking mastermind with like, you know, legendary levels of intelligence, I'll have all these dialogue options and people and stuff that I never experienced on my first playthrough of the game. So like the game is instantly replayable. Possibly even a couple of times, more than like twice, because there might be other things in the game that I haven't realized, where there's like some mechanic, like, you know, if I give myself 1,000,000 points in like fucking my donger or whatever, I can do like some different shit or whatever. And I think that's cool. I think that's like, I think that's a cool thing to design. I think that that's something that we could see more of now in games, and I'm not sure why we don't see as much of. But again, I guess like the games industry has come a long way since like the 90s and the 80s. Things are much more refined or whatever. But I mean, everybody wants to make money as well, obviously. I mean, it's easier than ever now to make a game and get it published and stuff, and, you know, potentially make a living off of developing and publishing a game. But at the same time, it's so saturated that it's harder too, isn't it? I mean, like it's such a weird thing, isn't it? Like one indie developer can make a game, potentially get it greenlit on Steam, potentially release it for early access for money on Steam, and potentially make enough money to fund the rest of his game through that means. But he has to have a good idea for a game, something that fits with what people want at the time, or somehow fills some sort of niche or whatever. And it's so saturated now that it's impossible. Like I played Orcish Inn recently, which to me is a fantastic game. I can't remember the last time I've had so much fun playing a new game that I just happened to stumble across thanks to Tom sending me an email saying, check this out, it looks fun. That doesn't happen very often. But the fact is that this guy is working on this game, and I think he's sort of hooked up with Steam or whatever for it to be released on Steam eventually, but not yet. It's not out on Steam yet. You can just download it from his webpage or whatever. And you can play this game, and it's great. There's a lot of thought put into it. It's really great and everything, but it's impossible to find. How do you find this? in and amongst this sea of indie titles and games, and just there's all these iOS games now. There's just games everywhere. The industry is so huge now. And the AAA games that are coming out, the really, really big games that are coming out, are all sort of doing the same stuff, aren't they? They're all introducing DLC now. They're all introducing some form of free to play, which inevitably requires microtransactions or additional stuff that you either cosmetically can enhance the game with, or you actually need to pay. It's pay gated, so that you have to pay microtransactions to continue playing the game in some way or whatever. The grind is just so ridiculous that nobody wants to do it. You have to pay money or whatever. But then all these indie devs and all their games are just sort of out there, and it's weird to think. I think Orcish Inn definitely for me is one of those games where it reminds me of an old game. It reminds, the design that's gone into it and the ideas and everything reminds me of a game that could have been made in the 90s or whatever, and could have been given some sort of publishing deal in the 90s, and just sort of done okay in the 90s. Not revolutionized any sort of genre or industry or anything like that, but just the kind of game that you'd go into electronics boutique or whatever, and it would just be sitting there on the shelf with a bit of dust on it because there wasn't a lot of magazine coverage on it or whatever, but it was still there. It was still designed and made and published and put out there, and there's a box and a manual and stuff, and it's ready to go. There's so many games like that in the 90s that just slipped under the radars, and now you can get them on goodoldgames.com or whatever, and they're classics. You remember them, the Impression city building games were all like that. You never heard anything about them. There was no commercials, there were no ads. Sometimes in PC Gamer there'd be an ad or something for Caesar or Zeus or something like that, but very rarely. And it was only when you went to the store to buy a game or or just to have a browse, look around or whatever, and you'd see oh shit, what is this? Zeus? What game is this? Oh my god, look, you can build a city and you can trade and stuff. What? $30? Okay, I'll try it. And then before you know it, you just have this huge collection of weird, obscure games that should never have seen the light of day, that somehow managed to see the light of day. And this is a ramble, but I just find it nice to know that it is possible to still find these excellent games out there amidst all of the sort of chaos and the saturation and all that. There are still these little gems out there that you can find and you can pick up and you can play, and they might remind you of old times, or they might just be so good that you just pick them up and just think, oh my god, this is just fantastic. This is everything I've wanted in a game, even just recently. Not even over the course of my gaming life or whatever. Just in the past week, I've just felt like playing a game like this, and I found it. And it's free, and I could just play it, and it's made by one guy. And I might not ever need to pay money to enjoy this or something. I just think that's great. I think it's really good. My god, I'm sorry. This has been a real fucking ramble and a half. About all sorts of shit. Primarily, it was an update on next week, me going away, and then I just got lost in nostalgia and talking about old games and new games, and just really making weird points about achievements and then possibly recent game design. I don't know. I think about it from time to time, but like I don't think about it enough to like string it together into any sort of like productive argument or anything about it. Like The Last of Us, I played through that a bit. I still haven't finished it, but like to me, like it's like a new. Well, it's not even really a new game anymore, is it? It's like kind of old now, in relative terms. But it's like it's a game if you like, but it's more like it's some part of me just feels like the writing and everything and the story and everything is so cool. Like, I guess maybe they just didn't have enough money to make a TV show about it, or like a movie or whatever, but because there's not really much gameplay in it. Like, yeah, you can shoot guns and stuff like that, but what game, you can shoot guns and do shit like that in any game. There's no real like mechanics in that game. There's no real gameplay in that game. It's like you get to a part and there's like a zombie trying to eat your brother or something, and it's like, oh, press triangle really quickly 1,000,000 times to escape the grasp of the, like Wolf Among Us was like that as well. There's a couple of dialogue options and stuff, but it's more like watching a movie or a TV show, isn't it? Like occasionally you have to like hurt your wrist pressing Q when you're not expecting it to like dodge a punch or something like that. But other than that, there's not really much gameplay in it. And it's not a problem. If the story's amazing and it's like really compelling and like exciting and stuff like that, it's fine. But like if it's dull or whatever, you might be left just thinking like, been fun to like climb up some pipes, or I don't know, like drop kick some dude off the Empire State Building or something like that. I don't know, something like exciting where you actually had to like control around and maybe even like had to retry it a couple of times because you died. Like how often do you die in games now? Well, I don't even know. I mean, I'd have to play some recent games to tell you. All I seem to do is play old games, so maybe I'm not the best person to be talking about this. But the thought popped into my head, so I thought I'd share it anyway. All right, well, it has been 31 long-ass minutes of rambling. Like I said, this will be out on my channel on Sunday, so I'm kind of like recording ahead of time. And then this will go up onto iTunes next week before I go away. In case that's where you listen to it or whatever. It's on Libsyn as well. So if you don't have like an iPod or an iPad or whatever, and you don't have access to iTunes in some way, shape, or form, you can go to Libsyn and download them there from like your Android or your, I don't know. What else is even out there? I have no idea. I couldn't even tell you. I mean, I have an Android phone. I have a Samsung phone. But I have an iPad as well, so I get the best of both worlds, I guess. Or is there more than two worlds? I don't know. You have to tell me. I have no idea about these things. So there you go. Great. Well, I hope you enjoyed that ramble. I hope it wasn't too much or too little. Some people are saying they want these longer. Can you believe that? It's like they're already like really long. No? Half an hour? Like more than half an hour? I mean, geez. We'll see. I mean, if there's something worth talking about for longer than like 20 minutes, half an hour, I suppose. Clearly, I can't talk about games for longer than half an hour, though, because the rambling and the tangents are just like way too much. And maybe none of it makes sense now, but we'll have to see. All right. Well, as usual, thanks very much for listening. I'll be back. When I get back, I'll be back to do more solo stuff. And when I get back, I will also have Lewis and Terps and some other people from my group of friends on to do more podcasty kind of stuff, because it's actually very fun to do. I enjoy it quite a bit, actually. Great. All right. Well, I will. I'll see you next time then. Thanks for watching and goodbye.
I want to be part of the stunt crew. I want to be part of the dudes. I want to be part of the stunt crew. I want to be part of the dudes. I want to be part of the stunt crew. I want to be part of the dudes.